Today's video is sponsored by Corsair. Fellas, Corsair just released their all-new laptop, the Corsair Voyager AMD Advantage Edition. And they even sent one my way so I could try it out for myself. And let me tell you, it is a portable powerhouse that's been designed for streaming, gaming, and content creation. Powered by AMD's latest 8-core Ryzen 6000 series processor, the Voyager sports a premium 16-inch quad high-definition IPS display, as well as an AMD FreeSync for 240 Hz of silky smooth frames. This laptop also comes with 2 Thunderbolt 3 compatible USB Type-C ports, along with another USB Type-C port, USB Type-A ports, and a full-size SD card reader. So whatever you need to connect, Corsair has you covered. And if you're looking to go wireless, the Voyager also supports Wi-Fi 6E, as well as Bluetooth that utilizes Corsair's Slipstream wireless technology for super low latency connectivity with all your Corsair peripherals. Now, personally, my favorite feature is the integrated macro bar Corsair has built right above the keyboard. So any commands you program are just a click away, even when the laptop is close. Guys, there are so many features that I can go on and on about, including that HD webcam, the mechanical keyboard, which by the way has RGB switches, the IQ software. There is a ton here that is fantastic about this laptop. If you're interested, down below is a link that will take you to the Corsair Voyager AMD Advantage Edition. This is by far the most powerful laptop I have ever laid my hands on. So fellas, check it out for yourselves, and big shout out to Corsair for sponsoring today's video. Fellas, on the docket list over the next few weeks, we have a number of Glaive builds that I want to go over. Primarily because Glaives got a rework this past season. Essentially, there was an update to Glaives allowing them to synergize with exotic perks like Karnstein Armlets, ACD Feedback Fence, and Necrotic Grips. This was update 6.2.0. Now currently, this is a very short list of exotics given how many are present in the game that interact with melee damage, but Bungie has made it clear that they do plan on adding more in the future that will synergize with the melee on Glaives. Now, we got most of this information from a podcast featuring Mercules, who is an associate weapons designer at Bungie. We made a summary video on it, if you want to check that out. Despite only having 3 exotics to choose from, we figured it was time to put together the best Glaive build that we can for both normal and in-game content. Today's build is going to be focused more on team play, since it doesn't give you great flexibility with champion mods this season. But as long as your teammates have you covered with champion stuns, you can have a lot of fun with this build in both Master and even Grandmaster Nightfalls, which by the way are launching next week, and we're going to be all over them. Now, the goal of today's build is first and foremost to run around and melee everything, but also to use those melees to feed our grenade regeneration for constant ability uptime. We're going to be on a Warlock today for this build, since 2 of the 3 exotics that are updated to work with Glaives are on this class. Voidwalker is going to be the best subclass, since we'll be able to take advantage of our Glaive to feed our other abilities. Now, for our super, we're going to be running Nova Bomb, and Vortex or Cataclysm both work here. We do have some flexibility for our grenades, but the best options are either Vortex Grenade or Scatter Grenade. There are reasons for choosing one over the other, which we're going to touch on here shortly. We also have Healing Rift for our class ability. Our aspect is Child of the Old Gods, where essentially casting your Rift creates a Void Soul, and that when you damage a target with your weapons, your Void Soul will fly toward them and then drain them, doing damage and weakening them. Our other aspect is Feed the Void, where defeating a target with a Void ability will activate Devour. And again, Devour is perfect here for this kind of build because you're in the nitty-gritty of everything and you're constantly getting your health back, which of course extends Devour. Now onto our fragments, we have Echo of Exchange, where melee final blows grants grenade energy, Echo of Undermining, where void grenades weakens targets, Echo of Leeching, where melee final blows start health regeneration for you and nearby allies, and Echo of Obscurity, where finisher final blows grant invisibility. Now for our exotic armor piece. We chose Necrotic Grips. We're going to touch on Karnsteins in just a moment, which I very much like Karnstein for its survivability, but Necrotic Grips here are amazing for ad clear, and they synergize with Glaives. They come with the perk Grasp of the Devourer, where damaging combatants poisons them, dealing increased damage over time, and defeating a poison combatant spreads the condition. It also provides moderate benefit to the airborne effectiveness stats of all weapons of sorrow, yada yada. Really though, before this season, when using a Glaive and wearing these gauntlets, you would receive no benefit. But with update 6.2.0, that Necrotic Grips poison effect can now be activated by Glaives and their melees, and boy is it fun to watch. It's a beautiful thing to behold. All of this leads into our weapons. The Glaive of choice is Enigma. Honestly, the deciding factor for this decision is that it's a Void Glaive. That is very easy to obtain. You can craft it. It's from Witch Queen, and it technically synergizes better with our Void subclass with this build. But honestly, you can use any Glaive that you like. Perks aren't a huge factor, since nothing actually increases our melee damage, and frankly, almost nothing works with Glaive melees at all. You can make an argument for something like Swashbuckler on Lubre's Ruin, or Demolition Adrenalin's Junkie for Nezrak's Whisper, but honestly, while putting together this build, it was very frustrating because Glaive melees are kick kicked to the curb in terms of mod and perk support. Bungie outlined in a sandbox swap last season in April that their intent for Glaives is to activate perks that trigger off of base melee damage, such as Swashbuckler and Grave Robber, and benefit from damage buffs that affect base melee damage, Winter's Guile, and Wormguide Caress. They have no plans of allowing Glaive melees to activate perks that trigger on power melee usage, or benefit from weapon damage buffs. That is reserved for the Glaives projectiles. Again, we'll talk more about our thoughts on where Glaives should be boosted in the future, but to summarize, it feels like we're still in the beta testing portion for Glaives. Granted, Glaives are super annoying inside of PvP, so when I say beta testing, I mean purely on what it can synergize with and what it can't. For our second weapon, we chose Witherhoard. This is easily the best choice when you're trying to maximize your damage to a single target with this Glaive, and of course, it is fantastic for ad clear. Essentially, just prime a target with Witherhoard, and then proceed to poke the enemy to death with your Glaive. Now for our mods. Our helmet mod is a grenade launcher ammo finder mod, Glaive ammo finder, and reaping wellmaker. I know some of you may have been concerned when you saw we plan on running double special with this build. Honestly though, it's okay considering we can use the base melee on the Glaive as much as we're using it. And between our mod selections, you'll be just fine for ammo. Reaping Wellmaker guarantees our next weapon kill after using our well will generate a void elemental well. For our gauntlets, we've selected 2 bolstering detonation mods, which will give us class ability energy when doing damage with our grenade, and Well of Tenacity, which will give us 40% damage resist after picking up a void well. On our chest piece, we're running 2 thermal shock platings for arc and solar resist, and another Well of Tenacity mod. On our boots, we're rocking Glaive Scavenger as well as elemental ordnance, and if you want, guys, you can actually swap between grenade launcher scavenger mod and of course the Glaive Scavenger mod. Finally, on our class item, we have utility kickstart to give us back more class ability energy, special ammo finisher, as well as elemental time dilation. Now granted, I know that special ammo finisher does take away some of your super, but the trade-off is that we never run out of special ammo. We just need to finish 1 ad. Elemental time dilation will allow our Well of Tenacity mods to stack, which increases the total time for our 40% damage resist. Now how does this all work? Before getting into an engagement, we first pop our healing rift. This will refund us class ability energy because of utility kickstart, and prime reaping wellmaker to give us a void well on our next weapon kill. Yes, this also includes Glaive melees. This is one of the few mods that does synergize with Glaives. After getting a kill, we will receive an immediate 40% damage resist for 12 seconds. Normally this would be much shorter at 6 seconds, but thanks to elemental time dilation and our 2 Well of Tenacity mods, we have immediate access to over 10 seconds of free roam to get kills in areas that would normally be more dangerous. Once we come across a target that takes more than 1 shot to kill, our Child of the Old Gods will track them, applying weaken to the target and granting us grenade and melee energy. At this point, we'll still have full grenade and melee, but by now, Well of Tenacity should be running out, so it's a perfect opportunity to use our grenade to get a kill. This will activate Devour, granting us healing and increased grenade regeneration, bolstering detonation, which will be refilling our class ability even more, as well as generating another void well because of elemental ordnance. This is why I prefer to use things like scatter grenades, because if you just need that quick kill to refill your damage resist, scatter grenades are much faster than vortex grenades, which does do damage over time, but not all at once. Now looking back at our Glaive, now that we have lots of damage resist, the game plan is to spam melee red bar enemies. Necrotic grips will chain poison damage to all nearby adds after each kill, making clearing rooms much easier. Echo of Leeching will grant us health regeneration on every kill, and Echo of Exchange will grant us grenade energy on each kill as well. You shouldn't need to take down more than 4 adds in order to get your grenade energy back and Devour active. Without Devour, you're looking at about 7 adds to fully refund your grenade. Whenever you encounter a yellow bar or a mini boss or a boss or even a champion, if you don't have Child of the Old Gods, thanks to Echo of Undermining, chuck your grenade at the enemy to then weaken them. This is where an argument for vortex grenades can be made, as weaken does last for 7 seconds, and because vortex does damage over time, you end up with about 12 seconds of weaken in total. This is of course without Echo of Persistence, which would increase the duration even more. Then you follow with a horde and you start hacking away with your Glaive, and you'll be surprised how easily you take out high health targets with this build. Now what do you do if you get into a pinch and you're close to dying? Well, you have 2 options. You can get a finish on a target, and because of Echo of Undermining, you'll go invisible. Simultaneously, you'll grant yourself special ammo, or if you have Glaive energy from getting a few kills with the projectiles, you can then put up your shield to reduce all incoming damage, giving you time to escape. Now before we give you the second option to this build, I do want to go over Glaive rolls real quick, and specifically on the Enigma. First up, these are its random rolls, but a couple of things to just clarify here. Subsistence only works with projectile kills, refunding 1 ammo per kill. Grave Robber actually works with the Glaive melee and refunds a full magazine, which is our recommendation here. But in that second column, you have Rampage, which can only be activated by projectile kills. Thresh, which also only works with projectile kills. Unrelenting only regenerates health with projectile multi-kills. Kill Clip activates only on projectile kills. Unstoppable Force buffs projectile damage after blocking damage with the shield, but again, you have to have shield up for that damage bonus. bonus. And Frenzy can just be activated by being in combat. No requirements for melee or projectiles. But again, similar to the other one, it only buffs projectile damage. In this case, guys, I would only recommend either Unstoppable Force or Rampage. Both enhanced versions increases the duration. Nothing will buff the melee damage though, but both give a 30% increase to projectile damage. One requires kills, the other requires your shield to be up, which also requires kills to charge the shield. So it depends on your playstyle. Personally, I like to be constantly moving, so Rampage works great for us here. Both combined with Grave Robber, and if you get that enhanced version, you'll have that +5 reload speed, but again, not really worth it. The only other trait to potentially consider is tilting at windmills for your first slot, which will increase your movement speed when blocking. But the idea of this build is to be constantly using the melee function. I wish there was more perks here, guys, or at least perks that synergize more with Glaive melees. We know that rework is coming at some point, but I just wanted to give some clarity on those traits. Now, the second variation to this build. Let's say that the build we just gave you wasn't enough. Maybe there are too many high health targets that you have to deal with, and survivability is just too difficult. This is where swapping to Karnstein Armlets is a great play. After getting a melee kill, you instantly restore a large amount of health, and you continue to restore health afterward for a short duration. Leeching is also good, but not nearly as good as Vampire's Caress. And a good comparison of like Vampire's Caress is that to like Restoration ×1 for solar subclasses. As long as the perk is active, your health will constantly regenerate even through damage, and since you now have better healing with Echo of Leeching, then you can swap Fragments to Echo Persistence for better buff duration, or even Echo of Reprisal to increase your super regeneration. Ultimately, Karnstein is the better in-game survivability exotic, but it doesn't have that add clear ability that Necrotic Grips brings to the table. So honestly, I would just swap out, guys, depending on the activity you're going into. Essentially though, that's your build. And if you do want to run champion mods, you can run things like Overload Machine Guns as an option. You can swap out Witherhort for Arbalest for anti-barrier, or any other weapon that has a champion mod for this season. But I definitely love the direction that Bungie is taking Glaives in with this synergy, and I hope they continue to do this. And from a lore perspective, Glaives are iconic. I know they just dropped on us in Witch Queen, but these are very iconic weapons, literally given to each one of the disciples. So please, Bungie, make them synergize. Now, a couple things I do want to mention about Glaives. Currently, Glaives are the only weapons you can't use to get charged with light using mods. All damage mods, except for high energy fire, don't apply to Glaives. Any mods that require kills with weapons of a certain energy type only work with the Glaive projectiles, and mods that should work with the Glaive melees don't. So things like Well of Ions, Striking Light, Hands On, Focusing Strike are all perfect examples of this. Currently, we only have 3 exotics that work with Glaives, but fellas, this is not enough. We need more if Glaives are going to be a viable option in in-game PvE. Bungie has stated that they don't want Glaives to activate charged melee perks, but that does beg the question, why not? Not every time, of course, but why can't Glaives utilize a charged melee and its perks and then consume the charged melee? This is exactly how Lorely works, except for our class abilities. Now, the issue could be is that Glaives do more damage currently than base melee attacks, and I guess if you stack those things, perhaps we're talking about too much damage. I'm not a game dev, but maybe that's the issue there. But like I said a second ago, considering how iconic Glaives are supposed to be, I want to see more synergy across the board. Mercury's actually mentioned in the podcast that they have one Glaive designer at Bungie, which is definitely a bottleneck. And this is not the first time Bungie has introduced archetypes of weapons and like completely forgot about them and pretended like they didn't even exist. Cough, cough. Warden's Law. Either way it goes, this is still a great build. It's not game breaking, but it definitely has potential. And if we ever get to a point where we start to see more synergy with our melee attacks on Glaives with certain perks, this Glaive build is only going to get nastier. Fellas and ladies, thank you all for coming and watching, and as always,
Slap that like button like your mama told you right.